All right, for round 3, we have Team Sultans Trivo, and Team Sultans doing pretty damn good, all across both tournaments, to be honest with you, versus Team Leviathan Gaming's Zezetel. So another awesome round with two great competitors, two teams going head to head here. So we'll see who's able to take it home. So let's go ahead and get into the game. I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually very excited. So two things. I'm excited to see the deep deck. I'm excited to see the Lucian Callista. Three things. And I'm excited to see the Tarek Lee Sin. So they added up too quick. Sorry.
So you're excited to see all of Zeze's decks?
No. The deep is on side of Trivo. Yeah, Zeze is playing the other ones. But here we go. Looks like we're getting started. And game 1 of Trivo versus Zezetel for round 3 here. Both players are 2-0, right?
Yeah, so we're going to get started off with Team Leviathan Gaming's Zeze Dude versus Trivo, who, as far as I know, is one of the very few Brazilian free agents. I don't think he's associated with a team. Doesn't have a team tag in DOR, at least.
Thank you for that.
Unless it's on his Smash.
Go ahead and update the team tag there next to Zezetel. Trying to stay on top of who is on what team here. And you'd think that I'd recognize the giant logo in the bottom right of his screen and actually think to put that, but nope. But here we go. Getting into game 1 here, we have this Gangplank Sejuani deck going up against the deep deck of Trivo. So as we thought, Gangplank Sejuani not banned. Please, for the love of God, Trivo, please, I hope you did not ban the Lee Sin. So we'll see what happens with that. Starting with the Naked Jagged Butcher, though.
So this is... Okay, Trivo's on Sultans. That's what I thought. But he didn't sign up with the Sultan tag.
Hey, man.
Damn it, Trivo. Put your team name out
Too many
there.
teams to keep track of, okay? Too many teams. Here we go.
Update the
Got
scorecard.
him.
So, historically, this is a terrible matchup for Nab.
Yeah, I got to agree, especially because a lot of the cards you can steal feel really useless, especially Jettison. So we'll see if Zeze is able to nab himself one of those, but does get the buffed up Jagged Butcher on the field. So Zezetel starting to build up a little bit of an aggressive field here, but I don't know if he's going to be able to be aggressive enough to really beat down this deep deck early on here, especially with two Thorny Toads already hitting the field on the side of Trivo.
Yeah, Thorny Toad is something that you have a difficult time chewing through. You don't really have enough reactive spells. Like, you really only have Make It Rain to try and stop something like a Devourer of the Depths going off. I mean, Jaw Hunters, Thorny Toad, Deadbloom Wanderer, you don't have removal for these blockers. They just get to stonewall your early game. And then Nautilus typically just eats up every single Riptide Wreck shot. There are a couple of spaces where Zeze can win this out with something like a Sejuani that gets leveled up, so you do have to play as aggressively as possible in the early game, try and get those level ups happening as quickly as possible. Also, don't have removal for the Maokai. That's another big problem where the saplings get to come down and start picking apart your board.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Trivo's opting to not block with the Dredgers for 2 turns in a row now. I'm not sure why he's deciding to do that. Maybe thinking he'll get a little bit more value or do something just like this, being able to pull this keg. But I imagine he just wants to block something a little bit bigger than a 2-2, just get a little bit more blocking value out of that Dredger. So we'll see if he is able to have that happen here in the next couple of turns. And it looks like quick Snap Vengeance onto the Gangplank on the side of Trivo. Wow, all right, so that's definitely going to help. But Zeze Dude has another Gangplank in hand, so we might get that, or being an attack turn, could possibly throw down the Sejuani. Looks like he's going to opt for the Gangplank, drawing another as well.
So that's all 3 Gangplanks already drawn for Zeze.
So
looking pretty good.
I mean, I feel like after this attack, too, do we ever want to go ahead and use the Gangplank's parlay here? I mean, now that he's blocking with the 4-1, I imagine we don't want to with the Jaw Hunters, because that probably would have been the prime target for it. But I don't think we really want to waste the keg on the parlay.
Not only do we not want to waste the keg, but I think if we can, we want to save the parlay for an off-turn activation. Just kind of kill whatever Trivo plays on the following turn, though I don't think Gangplank's going to live through the turn. Pretty sure that's going to get eaten by a Vile Feast or something along those lines. It would actually have to be exactly Vile Feast. No Unspeakable Horrors in the deep deck. That one hasn't quite made its way here. We do overwhelmingly see Vile Feast in these decks still. That Spiderling still super relevant.
Yep.
So third Gangplank still on the side of Zeze. This is about as good as a hand is going to get for the deep deck, really scaling into the mid game beautifully with the Gangplank and Sejuani train up until that Riptide on 8. And I think Trivo is still pretty far away from deep. We're pretty unlikely to see a Nautilus come down here.
So this is interesting on the side of Trivo, this build, right? There is actually no Withering Wail and no Grasp, just 2 Vengeance and 2 Ruination,
Yeah.
and only 1 Salvage, which I can't really remember the last time I saw a deep deck only play 1 Salvage, maybe 2. A lot of times I've seen 3, obviously, so this might be why we're seeing Trivo actually still not be deep on turn 8 here, but that might actually be the game plan of this deck, understanding that a lot of decks are very late game now, and maybe he doesn't need to go deep as quick. I'm not sure.
I mean, if we're jettisoning here to go deep or salvaging. Okay, so it's
wow.
Nautilus's Riptide. There we
That's
go.
big. That's big.
So that is going to be Gangplank shuffled back into the deck. A little bit of damage pushed onto the Nautilus, but I mean, the Riptide, you can fire 7 shots at the Nautilus and get it down to 3 HP, but it doesn't look like that's something Zeze's interested in doing. Devour is a pretty good pickup, though.
Yeah, not only just so that Zeze can use the Devourer, but more so that Trivo no longer has access to at least one of the 3 that he's playing. So that might be pretty big. But we do see the Abyssal Eye come down for Trivo. That might be... Oh, all right. Well, there we go. That's actually probably the perfect target for the Devourer. Wow.
I like this a lot because this lines up perfectly. You get to devour this, and now you can go ahead and send your opponent deep if you really want to with the pilfered goods. But Zeze is going to hold that one back. And if it looks a little bit weird, it is because he wants Trivo to hit deep on his own. He doesn't want to have to block with this Devourer of the Depths. Shipwreck Hoarder going to come out. Was this interaction changed? Because I feel like when Rising Tides came out, Shipwreck Hoarder wouldn't actually put you deep because the toss and the put-in happened at the same time. But nowadays, you actually do go deep in that small window between the toss and the cards getting shuffled in.
I think you always went deep, at least from what I remember it. I feel like it was always deep because it would discard, check, and then shuffle, and then check.
I specifically remember it because it was the finals of a DOR.
Really?
And Winding God's opponent was at 16 or 17, played the Shipwreck Hoarder, didn't go deep, and then he messaged Winding God to ask if it was a bug, and that's why he didn't go deep. And then Winding God went, oh, he doesn't have Jettison, and just killed him.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that now that you mention it because it gave away what cards he did not have. That feels really bad. They might have hotfixed it if that's the case, yeah. But it does look like we are going to get an all-out assault here from Zeze, with Trivo only being at 11 and not having really any lifesteal outside of Vile Feast, really, and then obviously the Dead Bloom Wanderers. This could be nearing the end of the game with Zeze being able to take it home, especially with something like Riptide in hand if he's able to get rid of this Nautilus. But we are going to see another Nautilus's Riptide. Oh, my God. 2 4-mana, essentially, Vengeances. That feels really bad, man. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've constantly said Nautilus is Riptide, the best champion spell in the game, specifically when it is a champion spell.
Yeah, and now actually forced to play. I think it actually got a lot of hits on the Nautilus, unfortunately.
Yeah. That is not, it looks like 3 hits on the Nautilus, maybe even 4, because I think I only see 2 onto the Spider and 1 onto the Hoarder.
Yeah, that's probably one of the worst outcomes you could see. You definitely wanted to try to kill the Shipwreck Hoarder there, or at least get one more hit, so that you could chump block it with that Jagged Butcher, and not getting lucky there. Funny enough, though, there is still a lot of cards in Zeze's hand. So, like, card-wise, he still might have a chance to do something here. But, I don't know. As long as that Nautilus is on the board, I'm hard-pressed to figure out. Wow! Okay, well, that might do it. That might be what Zeze needed to stay in this game. And, wow! Those are some good nab cards.
So we haven't seen Shipwreck Hoarder in a while. It's typically been Terror of the Tides, that 8-mana fearsome one. That was just kind of the way that the format leaned for a while. But now that we are back in this, sort of super control meta, I've always sung the praises of Shipwreck Hoarder in control matchups. But against Deep, going for a second one is really greedy. And your opponent can steal one of those treasures, and this Trove could turn the tide of the game. Even the Abyssal Eye could be enough to turn the tide of the game. Wow. Stop Trivo from refueling on cards like he needs to. Granted, Zeze's is not going to be enough to kill it. Is going to have to throw out the block here. And I'm actually a little surprised we didn't open with something like a Ruination on the side of Zeze.
Yeah, sorry. I'm still trying to just catch up from my awe of getting that treasure trove. Not only that, he has another pilfered goods, Zeze. So it's totally possible he steals even more cards that are going to help him. I mean, it's funny. Have we seen Jettison? I think we saw one Jettison played.
Oh no, this is gonna bring back a shipwreck hoarder, and
Oh
we could
my
see another
God.
pilfered goods steal. Trivo has yet to mill
Yeah.
or toss one of his own treasures to get it into his hand, and these are apparently just Zeze's treasures to play with. Says, "Thank you very much
Oh,
for running the
wow.
shipwreck hoarder. I will take those, and we will see what I can crack out of this treasure trove a little bit later on." Is gonna have a really big attack turn here. I feel like Trivo might just die before we actually get to see what comes out of this trove, which would be a little unfortunate. I do still like the Ruination play available for Zeze. Doesn't have a whole lot of refuel on his own, so I understand holding it back, but I would like to just eat out all of my opponent's resources with this.
Well, here's... Oh, that's...
We have to do it now, right?
Yeah, you have to Ruination now. You actually can't not Ruination. It's like you lose if you don't Ruination. And now we're down to a situation where Trivo's top decking, and I think, honestly, that's what Zeze was saving this Ruination for, because Plate Worm Egg is the one worrisome treasure card that you honestly care about countering. And I think that knowing that, you can't play Ruination until you see that card come out. And that's exactly what we saw from Trivo. And Zeze following up with that Ruination there is huge.
Oh man, I was when he slammed the card, I was like, another Plate Worm Egg is pretty close to lethal.
Yeah.
But it was just a Jaw Hunters. Let's see what came out of that one.
Yes, another shipwreck order.
Oh
I was just going to say, watch it be another. And look at.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Was that 2 plate worms? No, keel breaker?
No, that was a keel breaker and a plate worm. Can't play either of them this turn, though.
Wow. So he's Zeze going to go wide, maybe, and then. Do you play Treasure Trove this turn?
You have 3. Maybe.
I think you do, and then you try to go wide for an open attack, right? You can just overwrite Omen Hawk and Dreg Dredgers, right?
No, your opponent's. I mean, Trivo's definitely going to attack, right? You shouldn't have to overwrite anything.
I think.
No, never mind. Trivo actually doesn't go for it.
All right, that's right. You can just block with those. So.
Doesn't want to give Zeze the draw.
No, I like this. I like this, and then you just go for the open attack. Ooh, and shrooms. I want to see the shroom.
Call of the Wild gets nothing,
yeah,
right?
Gets 0.
There's no Yetis, Poros, or Elnuks.
Zeze actually had to read the card. He's like, what does this do? Oh, that's right. It gets discarded.
Yeah, I mean, like,
yep,
it's kind of awkward that you did get 2 completely dead cards in the Call of the Void and the Darkwater Scourge, but these shrooms could come in big. We've seen Karma Ezreal, sort of the only shroom deck that we've seen for a while, comes up really big when these deep decks are down to 10 or so cards in deck.
Yeah, no, this might end up being enough. Okay, no, yeah, so the Jaw Hunter's going to pull the Chump Wump. That means the Shipwreck is going to end up blocking the Cavalry, and we might end up see. Do you just play the 0 mana, by the way? Do you just play that?
I mean, like, it doesn't matter.
I want to see it played. Come on. Yeah, so this might be open attack for the game, and even if somehow there's something... I don't think Trivo can have anything. Even a Vile Feast... Oh, did he just draw 2 shrooms? Man. Oh.
Yeah, that's why we talked about the shrooms being so good versus deep when you're down to, 13 cards in deck and 10 of them have shrooms on them. Feeling pretty good. And Zeze going to pick up game number 1 in what is historically a pretty bad matchup. So
wow,
things working out pretty well for him there. The steal on the Ruination was absolutely massive.
Yeah, and so I mentioned the deck building of Trivo earlier. He didn't ban Tarek Lee Sin. This match is fire. This match is great right now. I mentioned the deck building before. I'm not crazy about not having things like Withering Whale and Grasp, like not having any of those. I feel like that might have helped in that matchup.
I think he was just playing for the late game control meta that we find ourselves in, where Grasp and Whale don't really get a lot of value. You do want things like multiple Ruinations to be able to take out, Trundle's really the only thing that I can think of, because Tryndamere, the initial Tryndamere is going to survive and Ladros is going to go back to hand, but also very good against the Lux Asol decks.
All right, so now we are in the perspective. We are in the driver's seat of the one and only Lee Sin Tarek deck. So yet another version of Lee Sin. Since Thursday, Boulevard and I, on Thursday, we saw a Kick-Axe deck in play. Last round, we saw just a Ionia Targonian version with only Lee Sin. Now we're seeing an Ionia Targonian version with Tarek Lee Sin. So very exciting to see a lot of different Lee Sin decks pop up, and I'm curious to see which one's going to be the most successful.
Honestly, I think I like the Tarek in the Lee Sin deck, if for no other reason than Tarek's Blessing of Targon.
Ooh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure, especially with things like Zenith Blade still being played. Zeze going with 2 Bastion in this particular build also has 2 Will of Ionia, which we don't typically see, but I do like that in this, because if you do attack with Lee Sin with Overwhelm, Will of Ionia is actually going to be probably a game-winning card. So I tend to like putting that in this particular deck. We also have 2 Guiding Touch.
2 Spirits Refuge as well.
Yeah, 2 Spirits Refuge. So definitely a different way of building this deck. And three, count them, 3 Tasty Fae Folk. Let's go.
Yeah, Zeze definitely not wanting to lose to aggro with this deck.
Yeah, and we see the Taric hitting the board, and we already have Lee Sin in hand. And, that difference of being able to get Lee Sin down nice and early here going to come in handy. We'll see if we're able to drop it towards the end of Trivo's turn 5 here. And the only thing I will actually, going into something with Trivo playing 2 Vengeance and 2 Ruination and not really going for Grasp or Withering Wail or any of that stuff, it's going to be hard for Trivo, I think, to actually remove the Lee Sin because of these spell shields, right? Lee Sin, it feels like he's going to be able to stick around on the board a while with these Bastions being able to get rid of things like Vengeance and Ruination.
It does depend on if he's going to be able to draw the Bastions. We did see Trivo fire off multiple Nautilus's Riptides last game, and that is something that can disrupt the Taric Lee Sin combo. And that's something that's really important to note, is that Taric, once leveled, says him and his supported ally cannot take damage or die this turn. That doesn't stop Nautilus's Riptide.
Yeah, it's a good card. It's a good card. The card that nobody plays is a good card. It's ironic, huh? Yep. And there is exactly what you mentioned earlier, Boulevard, with the Targon's Blessing. And this is, I got to say, though, this is exactly why Jaw Hunter is so damn good. It seems like it wouldn't be because of that 1 health, but my God, that almost never comes into play. Sure, in the mirror match, you get Vile Feasted, feels bad. But being able to force a Targon's Blessing out of Zeze right now with such a, basically, just a very small part of Trivo's deck is pretty huge. Yep.
Oh, just going to be the Vengeance onto the Taric. And now Zeze's down both Tarics. And that doesn't feel good. Granted, it wouldn't have really mattered if, you would let your Taric die and then play the other Taric. You do like having that bigger Taric around. But now, actually, Trivo is going to get to hang on to the Jaw Hunters. But it doesn't matter. We draw another Taric on the side of Zeze. And something that I really like about the Taric for this... What does feel like sort of a Lee Sin combo deck is that Taric, even if you don't find the Lee Sin, gets you a lot of draw power as long as you're playing things like Pale Cascade and Guiding Touch onto it, because it'll draw for the Taric, and then when you cast the spell again onto a supported ally, you'll get another draw. And I feel like that's something that really plays out super well for a very combo-centric deck like the Lee Sin.
Yeah, so that is a very clutch draw. Probably kind of tilting for Trivo to see. I feel like it's always tilting to kill something, get rid of it, and then just instantly see it pop right back up out of your opponent's hand. So feels bad on the side of Trivo, but looks like we are possibly thinking about an attack here from Zezetel. Going to go with the Gem first, so that way if it is blocked by the Abyssal Eye, it will trade positively. Can't this just get blocked by the Jaw Hunters, though? And doesn't this... Oh, sorry. Well, no. I always forget that he has Tough. I have to get used to casting Taric now. He also gives Tough when he attacks as a support unit. So
yeah,
okay.
Pretty relevant, actually, especially when you're throwing him alongside something like a Lee Sin. Because, Taric just feels so great in this deck. Not only do you get those double draws, but when your Lee Sin isn't leveled, because he does take a decent amount of time to level, Taric does help out with that by, throwing multiple spells out, as someone in chat had mentioned. You throw a gem onto Taric, he throws a gem onto the supported. That's 2 spells for Lee Sin. But also just giving Lee Sin the Tough in case either your barrier does get popped or you don't want to commit enough spells to get to the barrier.
Yeah, and I gotta say, it just feels like Zeze's kind of just throwing these Tarics out to the breeze, just not really caring that they're dying. Sure, I guess you can't necessarily play around Jaw Hunters, but they've come and gone very, very quickly in this game.
Now we are at a point where Nautilus is on field. Granted, that doesn't mean a whole lot in the face of Lee Sin, who can just kick that one back into Trivo's hand. And Trivo's still not deep, so not going to have a big sea monster turn next time around. But it does mean, as we get closer to this Lee Sin level, that's a concern. But as I mentioned earlier, Nautilus is Riptide. That could just shuffle Lee Sin back into the deck, but it will not stop the Lee Sin's Dragon's Rage.
Yeah, still a little bit of a wait. Wait, what won't stop it?
Killing Lee Sin doesn't stop the Dragon's Rage, right? The unit still gets returned to him.
Yeah, it's because it's a spell that's added to the stack.
But I thought if you killed something in response to an actual Dragon's Rage, it stops it,
yes,
right?
Yeah, because the Dragon's Rage is targeting Lee Sin, and then Lee Sin is targeting the unit.
Stunning it doesn't stop it.
Stunning it doesn't.
Right?
Because
it's not a combat spell.
Correct.
On...
Yeah. You have to actually remove.
I think that's
the
where I
Lee
was
Sin.
getting
Yeah.
confused. Is I've been playing too much stun effects where I'm like, stunning Lee Sin doesn't work. That means killing Lee Sin doesn't. But no, killing Lee Sin will stop it as well as the Nautilus' Riptide. And now we are deep with 6 mana open to go ahead and play out a flurry of sea monsters. Going to start off with the Jaw Hunters, or not Jaw Hunters, Devourer of the Depths.
So I'm kind of excited about Lee Sin, which obviously I think we're all excited about Lee Sin. But I feel like he has a way, basically because of that Dragon's Rage, to be able to just like carve out a niche for himself in the meta against some of these larger control decks, because like what you said, he is able to just kick those units back. Like Nautilus. It doesn't matter how big the unit gets. He can just go ahead and challenge it and put it back. Same thing with Aurelion Soul. So I'm really hoping that that's kind of that niche use case for Lee Sin, and that's what is able to propel him forward in this metagame. But unfortunately, not. Yeah, he's going to end up surrendering here, just getting all of his Tarics killed early on and not being able to do anything with that Lee Sin.
I'm not sold on the Lee Sin versus control matchup, just because you're generally going to have to kick 2 or 3 things back to your opponent's hand, and if it's something like a War Mother's Control, then they're pulling out units every turn. It really depends on if you can get something like the Zenith Blade down onto the Lee Sin, give him that overwhelm. Otherwise, I don't know that he's enough of a top end for you to just beat out these control matchups, especially when Bastion is your only protection, but they have so many different ways to pop that through Unspeakable Horror and Vile Feast in response to a Vengeance, and I don't think that your Lee Sin late game is consistent enough. As we saw, Zeze ran out of cards. And if you have to continuously play 2 spells a turn to give Lee Sin that barrier and that challenger, granted, you really only have to give it challenger once he's leveled, and I think people forget that a lot. He just needs to be able to challenge a unit. But if you're still playing a spell every turn to do that, and the spell isn't replacing itself, you're just constantly losing advantage.
Yeah, so we'll see again if Zeze is able to take a victory here with this Taric Lee Sin deck. And I don't know, so seeing Taric die so easily there, as many times as he did in that first round, I mean, I got to agree the control matchup does seem a little bit rough for this deck, but I don't know, Taric just seems a little bit flimsy as far as that's concerned, being able to get killed so easily on an opponent's attack turn.
And that's why I didn't like the look of the support archetype when Call of the Mountain was spoiled. Like, just people talking about a Taric-centric deck. Like, he just doesn't feel like a good win condition to me. I like his use case a lot in this deck, where he feels more like an engine to dig to the Lee Sin and fuel the Lee Sin, but I don't really like Lee Sin as my sole win condition either. I don't know. Personally, I'm not super sold on this deck. We'll have to see how it plays out this weekend and next, but I'm not even sure that if we see it do well, that it's something you can convince me on.
Yeah, I think Kickaxe and then whatever it was we saw in the second round it was actually very surprising to see that pull a win out, but it seemed to be more focused on the OTK potential of Lee Sin and getting that one turn of just, all right, I got the right card set up, I have the deny in hand to prevent you from doing anything, I'm just going to go for it. I did like that deck and how it was constructed as well, but we'll see. We have another go at this Lee Sin deck.
I figured it out. I looked at Zeze's deck list and I put it all together.
All right.
He doesn't play Deny.
Okay. That's it. That's it.
That's it. So imagine you're going against, any kind of control deck and you're kind of all in on this Lee Sin plan and you just don't have protection for it outside of Bastion, which your opponent does have play around for, whereas Deny they really don't.
Yeah, so as an example, he is playing 2 Concussive Palm. I'm not really sure what Concussive Palm does for this deck. I mean, I understand the idea of what it's supposed to accomplish, but I don't think it supports the rest of the strategy and going in on that, that all-in Lee Sin strategy as much as everything else. Everything else is a buff or draw or a protection like Bastion for Lee Sin or like Spirit's Refuge with Barrier or Will of Ionia. Like, I don't see Concussive Palm really helping Zeze out too much.
Concussive Palm is your hush out. When your Taric or your Lee Sin gets hushed while in combat, that's your out, is you stun the blocker.
So, I mean, I don't know, man.
So I've run into a lot of Taric Lee Sin on ladder, but I've been playing Lux Asol, and anytime that I just hush the Taric and hush the Lee Sin, my opponents have generally conceded.
Well, it's just like hushing an Ezreal, right? But...
No, because you're killing. I mean, yeah,
because you're blocking
but
it.
Ezreal had a little bit more play around because if you knew that your opponent was playing Hush, you could just not attack with the Ezreal.
Okay, but here's my argument though. If you have Concussive Palm just for Hush, why not play Deny, which is just for I don't know, everything else? Like,
because that doesn't stop Hush.
I
It
know.
just works, and that's the cool new card to shit on is Hush. That's the one that we're all complaining about. That's where the pitchforks are this week.
So we just hate Hush, and we have to play everything to beat Hush. Okay. I don't know.
I mean, Hush. Look at this matchup. If we see a Hush onto a Taric when like a Radiant Guardian goes to block it, and that's why this is not a matchup where you can afford to throw a Taric's Targon's whatever spell it's called, Taric's spell onto the Taric and have that try and work out for you, because there is a Hush in your opponent's deck and you don't have an answer for that. I am going to throw a blocker down onto it. Now you're just a vanilla 3/5. You don't have tough. You don't have undying. Nothing like that. And it's really easy for Trivo to just get bigger units than Zeze has and then have the Hush kind of clean it up. And I actually do want to check, because some players have even been playing 3 copies of Hush in a deck like this. There, are only 2 for Trivo, but that is going to be enough, I would have to think.
Yeah, and we see the Leona getting leveled up here, level 2. See if it's able to get any work done. And Zeze, unfortunately, no Lee Sin in hand to pair with this Taric, which he has actually been able to stick on board here. I'm trying to, real quick, going through this Leona Aurelian Soul deck list. So we have the Hush. Yeah, you know what? It's also, there's Concerted Strike in single combat, which could also help to take care of this Taric. Man. It just seems like it's going to be another tough matchup for Zeze. I can't get over how flimsy this Taric is. I think I got to agree with you on that whole support archetype thing.
So the problem with Taric is that in order for you to actually feel through your deck with things like the Pale Cascade and the Guiding Touch, you need to be attacking with Taric. Mm-hmm. And against these mid-range decks and even some of the control decks, Taric doesn't get to attack really safely. Even if you're playing against Warmother's control and an Avarician Hearthguard comes down on 5, unless you have Pale Cascade specifically, Guiding Touch isn't going to be enough. Your Taric is still going to die. And I don't think you can afford to be losing resources like that just to have your draw 1 turn into a draw 2.
Yeah.
I think we needed to see Zenith Blade onto Taric last turn just to get his health high enough that he can actually safely attack and throw out a Pale Cascade alongside him.
Yeah, but see, and then that's the problem, right? Even a Zenith Blade doesn't save the Taric from being hushed. Or not hushed, Concerted Strike or single combated, right? See, now I got, all I got is Hush on my mind because everybody's like, we hate Hush. So we do see the Zenith Blade come out, going up to 6 now. So, I mean, maybe this is what he needs. Oh, wait, does Zenith Blade do +1/+2? Okay, yes. I don't know why I'm thinking Pale Cascade is +2/+1. Okay, never mind. So it actually does put it out of range of Concerted Strike and single combat. So that's, I agree with you. I think you should have done that last turn then if that was the case.
Yeah, and this is really awkward. Having to use a Bastion onto a 1-mana Leona stun just so that we can try and Pale Cascade with our Taric this turn. And now we don't have the protection. I mean, Taric could die here. Sure, at least we get the 2 draws off of our, 1 card that's only, like, losing the Taric here and losing the Bastion for 1 additional draw does not feel worth it.
No, I think Bastion's too valuable, especially when you're not, as we discussed, when you're not playing things like Deny. Wow, I just totally blanked there. But Targon's Blessing, all right, if this Taric is able to stay on the board, this Blessing is going to put Taric really, really big, which might be able to allow it to stick around pretty much permanently.
Or run into a Hush and die immediately.
That too. That card's not good. I don't know what you're talking about. It's terrible.
That's the one problem that I've run into a lot with, like, just trying to play Taric decks is, like, it feels like it takes a lot to get him leveled, and then you can just get blocked and hushed, and that's it.
And watch where
it looks like Trivo doesn't have it. Otherwise, I do think we'd see the Ravoon thrown in front of it.
Oh yeah, definitely. So that at least is a read that Zeze can make now, knowing that Trivo likely does not have a Hush in hand. So we'll see what he's able to do with that information. Still, I love this. I love that you can discard the gems for stuff like Spacey Sketcher. Looks like, the 2 stun Crescent Strike. That might be huge for what looks to be a pretty big turn coming up for Zeze on the next attack turn. Can Trivo draw a Hush in essentially the next 2 turns is going to be the question.
Well, if Trivo doesn't have Hush, then Zeze can't afford to sort of pillar on this Taric because it has the Overwhelm. There are a fair amount of matchups where Taric does get to do the work as your win con. I just don't feel like this is one of them. Yep. But if your opponent doesn't draw the answers, this could just do it. I mean, we could see a lot of answers out of Trivo here. Concerted Strike, single combat not as much on the table. Concerted Strike going to get snuffed out by that Bastion that we did top deck, but
Wow.
It looks like it's going to be Falling Comet. So yeah, the Bastion coming in an extremely timely manner, but now we are out of that, and we could even see something in response like a single combat. And if that happens, I don't think Zeze is going to be able to pick this one up. We'll be able to get down another... Oh, okay. That was confusing for a second.
Yeah, okay. I was... So, that Bastion is huge for Zeze. Why are you thinking Zeze can't pick this up? You don't think there'll be enough overwhelm damage on the following turn?
No, I just figured Trivo was going to have something to pop the spell shield.
Oh, and let the comet actually go through. Yeah, no.
Yeah, like, I got really confused because the comet animation played out and Tarek disappeared from the screen for a second and then came back. Like, he remembered he wasn't supposed to die to that.
Okay, all right. I was going to say that sounded a little off, but yeah, I mean, this is where Tarek can be good, right? Like if we are able to buff him up, if we are able to get him above that rinky-dink 4 health that seemed to be a problem keeping him around against something like that deep matchup of Trivo, then he's great. You know, we're gonna see him go in for what looks to be a huge attack turn coming up here.
And I think you have to attack with only Tarek and the unit that Tarek supports, because otherwise your opponent's going to get the lifesteal off the Radiant Guardian. And yeah, we're even using the Kestrel Strike to deny the Radiant Guardian heal this turn, but I don't think we necessarily see lethal, because you would have to play a Zenith Blade onto the Tarek in order to pass the Overwhelm onto the next unit, but then your opponent gets to play something and stun your Tarek.
Yeah. And I gotta say, with that Radiant Guardian still being able to block next turn, I'm not sure if he will be able to put together lethal. Now, he could copy... Tarek only copies one spell or all spells? The last spell, right? Okay, so I was gonna say that would be awesome if the Blessing and the Zenith Blade could both be copied onto, you know, whoever he's supporting. Unfortunately, it's not going to be the case. If you play a Zenith Blade, that's still not lethal, so I don't think it's worth playing the Zenith Blade. So Tasty Feyfolk I don't really think is going to do it for him right now. So I imagine we're going to see Targon's Blessing come out.
Yeah, and now we just play a Daybreak spell.
Ooh.
Or a Comet, actually.
Ooh, that's...
No, I was going to say, any Daybreak just stuns the Tarek.
Yeah.
It was a little strange to me that Zeze went for that. I mean, does still have a Tarek available, but this one doesn't have Overwhelm.
And now we don't have Tarek's Blessing available, so this attack's just going to feel a lot weaker than it originally did. So I don't know. Do you even actually... You can go in for the attack, and sure, he's not going to trade... Like, he won't die, per se, but his 3 attack doesn't really trade with anything that well either. So I don't know if it's really worth Zeze going ahead and going in for this attack here.
There's no downside to it. Your unit can't die or take damage. You might as well, even if you're just pushing a little bit of damage onto Trino's units and softening up the board, I'd call that worth, especially because the Radiant Guardian can't get lifesteal off units that can't take damage.
And I guess going down to 1 health isn't a huge deal with Tarek, just because if he's going to die to something like a single combat or concerted strike, it won't matter anyways. Plus, you do have gems to be able to heal him up as well, I imagine. Yeah, we're going to see one come out.
Well, Tarek can't die or take damage this turn.
No.
He can't go down.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I'm thinking he would have went down to 1 taking damage during combat. So, okay, never mind then. I'm thinking the tough is still going to happen. Listen, I have to catch up on, like, seeing Tarek being played every day. Like, I know what he does in my head, but just not when I'm, like, going through games, like, really fast.
Somewhere in your nose, between your brain and your mouth, you lose track of what Tarek does.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Like your sinus is getting in the way.
Damn my nose. So, yes, that's right. Tarek has this whole thing where, like, you know, he doesn't die. So, at least when he's attacking anyways. So, that will definitely help with that attack there. Obviously, it makes sense for Zeze to take that free trade. And the problem is we still do not have a Lee Sin. That's kind of how this deck wins. So, I'd be curious to see if we are able to get this combo down. Because right now, there's not a whole lot that Zeze can do. And, okay, well... This clears up some of the board nicely. Cosmic Rays on the side of Trivo. Gonna get rid of basically everything Zeze has, but notably the Tasty Feyfolk and the Tarek will at least stick to the board. So those are really what matter right now.
But now we, again, get to see how bad this deck is on defense. There's nothing to stop Trivo from hitting you with this Radiant Guardian and getting a fair amount of life back. And if we see a Daybreak unit come down here, it will stun the Tasty Feyfolk, and that means we've got a pretty good attack turn on our hands. And there is the Solari Soldier. Ravoon going to power up the Leona, give her that stun onto the Feyfolk.
Yeah, and... Is this just going to be, let's see, is there, okay, no, now there's not lethal, definitely.
No, there's not lethal.
Hey, there's the Lee Sin, though. That's what we like to see. And, you know, I've played Zenith Blade a few times. God, I hate drawing multiple Zenith Blades. Like, it just feels so bad. It feels like the point of the card is kind of just, like, gone at that point. But at least now we do have 2 ways to give units overwhelm. So we'll see if either of those is played on Taric or Lee Sin next turn. Ooh.
Oh,
now
okay. We're going hard.
So does this force out a Spirit's Refuge onto the Messenger here? 5,
trying
10,
to count this up. 6. I mean, he doesn't have
15.
lethal.
Oh no, he has exact lethal, but unless the Messenger blocks. Or well, now he has Lee Sin to block as well, but I highly doubt. I guess you could block the 1/1 technically, but I don't know. But yeah, there's exactly 20 damage on Trivo's board as it currently stands. So, do you just risk? Do you just risk blocking the 1/1 and going down to 1 health?
I mean, you can block the 1/1 and the Mountain Scryer.
And that's if Trivo even goes in with those. So we'll see if Trivo does opt to go in for the full attack. It looks like he was considering it, but then realizing he'll just lose those units to chip blocks. And instead, gonna use the Messenger to block the Ravoon, deal some damage to the Ravoon, but also only go down to 11 here after this attack.
So I'm trying to play this out in my head, and I'm pretty sure the lifesteal from Trivo actually kind of steals this game away, because you can... Does Concussive Palm change anything? I don't think so. Because you can Zenith Blade the Taric, but then if there is a stun effect out of Trivo, another Daybreak unit, then Taric will actually be stronger than the Tasty Feyfolk, and I think that's why we see a Zenith Blade start off onto the Feyfolk, because this means that the second Zenith Blade onto the Taric will not allow it to be Daybreak stunned by the Leona. We can go for that combo with the Lee Sin. We have something like a Concussive Palm in case I don't remember what I needed Concussive Palm for in this situation. I think it was if there was some situation where Concussive Palm...
Telling you, the card shouldn't be in the deck. I'm sold on it, all right? No, bad card.
I think Spirit's Refuge is going to be a little bit more relevant. Yeah. But I do like the Zenith Blade start off onto the Tasty Feyfolk to play around yet another Daybreak unit.
Yeah, this is pretty crucial here. Buffing it up. And Lee Sin already leveled, so we'll see if we are able to get some use of this Lee Sin's Dragon range here for some sort of OTK potential. Man. We'll see what the response is for Trivo. So actually, Blazin in chat, Blazin Agent actually mentioned, yeah, you can stun the unit that Lee Sin pulls, so it does more damage to the overwhelm. Is that what you're thinking?
Probably. I know there's some use case. All right,
it's like Will of Ionia too. It's like I mentioned Will of Ionia. Yeah. If you recall it, it's still going to do the overwhelm.
I still can't get over the 0 denies in this.
I feel like if you're playing Lee Sin, you need deny. You absolutely need deny. And I mean, yeah, sure. There's 2 Bastion, which have been helpful. They were able to negate a Comet. So some pretty crucial plays there. But I don't know. But it looks like the single combat.
I'm waiting for Trivo to just finally draw the Hush and just shut everything down.
And actually, Trivo is playing... All right, Trivo's only playing 2 Hush, not 3. So I'd be very curious to see if he's been sitting on 1 all game and it's just kind of chilling, or if he top-decked it recently. Who knows? Oh, is this it? Is this...
I think if he had it, then he would have used it on the Taric there.
Is this the Hush?
I can't imagine he has Hush and didn't Hush
Wait,
Taric.
Can you hover a burst spell?
No.
Okay, so that can't be Hush. So we know at least 1 card in his hand is not Hush. So
probably Concerted Strike, which you do want to throw out now before Lee Sin actually gets the Dragon Rage off. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that also doesn't matter, right? Because we mentioned if Lee Sin dies in response, he doesn't actually get to strike, and the Dragon's Rage won't go off and bounce something to the hand.
And here we go. I think this is a pretty solid attack here from Zeze. I'm going to go in on this Radiant Guardian and going to be able to get rid of it. The Dragon's Rage will actually prevent the lifesteal from the Radiant Guardian, as well as the Radiant Guardian does not strike back in that instance. Going to do the Overwhelm on top of all of that. So... Oh, no, sorry. There is no Overwhelm on Lee Sin right now. I forgot.
No, yeah. It's just on the Tasty Feyfolk for the moment.
Yeah, I forgot he played it on the Tasty Feyfolk, so... We'll see what happens here. We have the barrier on the Tasty Feyfolk as well as Taric's support effect here, so We'll see what Trivo decides to do with the Tasty Fey folk. I still can't get over the picture on this card. I just gotta throw that out.
This is only... Palm on the blocker for Tasty isn't lethal. I mean, this is only 10 damage represented by Zeze at the moment because only the Tasty has the Overwhelm. So yeah, you just go ahead and let this go. You lose your Radiant Guardian. It's not that great. I mean, where's the Acel?
Or the Hush.
Is this even an Acel?
Yeah, it's 3 Leona, 3 Acel. And like, if he finds an Acel, or if he finds a Hush, or a Concerted Strike at this point, like, there's a lot of things that Trivo can do. Did he just top the Shield Breaker? Jesus. So...
It looks to be that way.
The other thing, too, is if he has enough Daybreaks, he can just stun everything and probably be able to go in. But it looks like Zeze actually has enough responses. Also has that palm in hand to be able to thwart any sort of attack like that. That's the thing.
Here we go.
Wow.
Leona's Morning Light, that's going to be a double stun as well.
I still don't think... Is that enough for game, though, with this concussive palm?
Almost certainly not.
I don't think so.
Well, no, probably not. Unless we have, like, another... I mean, imagine if we got another Morning Light off of the Ravoon trigger.
That would be ridiculous. But I think, yeah, because this will get another 3-2 blocker out. This will also stun the Ravoon. So this is definitely not lethal. And this...
It is if we got another Morning Light.
If we have another Morning Light, that's redonkulous. But if this is not lethal and Trivo doesn't have follow-up... This reads that Trivo has no way of dealing with Zeze's board because Trivo has to be the aggressor here going in. So Zeze might be able to close this out next turn. Oh, that's not Morning Light. That is a stun, though.
I mean, there were a couple of things that Zeze could have gotten off, or that Trivo could have gotten off the Ravoon. Something like a Sunburst would have been really big here as well.
And, All right, so that's 5, 10, yeah. It's not going to be enough with these two blockers lined up for Zeze. Really curious to see what that last card hit. That last card, I feel like, has been around a while. It might be an Aurelion Soul, and maybe Trivo isn't able to get it down, but I feel... Oh, no, never mind. It's a spell. It's Pale Cascade, which is...
Going to see what we can draw beforehand. I'm not sure what we could have drawn that we would have played in a situation like this. But...
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I'm just waiting for this Hush, man. I'm waiting for... I guess at this point, Trivo just needs to draw as much as possible so that he can draw the Hush.
Yeah.
But let's see. I'm trying to see. I don't know what the board was originally at, like, because everything's going to lose all of its stats. So, okay. Hush actually won't matter if Zeze open attacks here. It will matter, but it won't kill the Lee Sin as long as he doesn't pull the Ravoon. And that's something to take note of, too, because even though that'll kind of delay it for Trivo, that's one Hush wasted if he did draw it.
Hush doesn't stop the Dragon's Rage either.
Yeah, exactly.
It will make it so that the Lee Sin Dragon's Rage isn't lethal, as he'll go back down to 4 attack. I think a little bit of how much healing do you need?
Okay, hold on. I think I know the answer to this, but Tarek supports Lee Sin. Lee Sin can't die.
Yeah.
Hush gets played on Lee Sin. Does the support effect still remain?
I don't believe so. Oh, there we do see the
There's
Hush.
the Hush. Now, does the support effect still happen because he's still being supported? Is it constant?
I don't think so.
I think he doesn't know, which is why he might... Oh, no, maybe he just wants to kill. He just wants to kill the Tarek.
Yeah, you just want to kill the Tarek as well. And you have to Hush the Tasty Fey Folk as well so that you can kill that. So Spirit's Refuge is going to get to save one of these units. Probably the Tarek. Lee Sin's already safe because he's got the Dragon's Rage going off regardless.
Wow, so this was a top-decked Hush. If this Hush was not drawn, this would have been game this turn. So this is fire. This is going down to the very last minute here as far as this game is concerned. And wow, this has been a lot of back and forth with an Aurelion Soul deck and no Aurelion Soul having ever been played.
He just lets the Tarek die, not going to use the Spirit's Refuge.
Wow, okay. So might be valuing the Spirit's Refuge on the Lee Sin to really gain just a lot of health if needed at some point on another attack.
Well, there's this really awkward thing where Lee Sin didn't kill the Leona. That did just go back to Trivo's hand. He gets to play that again next turn and stun your Lee Sin. So if you were hoping for a big life swing with the Lee Sin on this turn, that's not happening.
Yeah. Wow, okay. So...
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, Hush would negate the Refuge again.
Would
have gotten a little bit more mana out of your opponent, but that's not really worth it.
Was there enough mana? Did he have 3 mana still open?
Yeah, he had 4 mana.
Oh, okay. I don't know. For some reason, I thought he only had 2 mana left. So, and it looks like we are going to get the Zenith Blade out on the claw, so we'll see.
Yeah, trying to get as much
tail.
health as possible for that, or much attack as possible for that Spirit's Refuge, but is it going to be enough? If you block the 2 biggest units, I think that this might be a misaligned attack for Trivo. You want to throw the 2 strongest units all the way to the right in case of any kind of lifesteal out of your opponent.
And here we...
It looks like Zeze's done the math, because he hasn't hovered the eye. But I think this... Yeah, I think this is exact lethal if you play the Spirit's Refuge. Well, not if you move the... Oh, this is awkward. Yeah. I believe this is exact lethal.
Wait a second. Hold on. 2, 4 goes back up to 8. No, it's 1 off, isn't it? Hold on. 2. Man, I am so bad at math. If it goes down to 5...
You take 4, then you gain 4, then you take 7. And if you block like this, then you take 7 before any of your Spirit's Refuge units get to block. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is exact C's. Yep.
Wow. It's 5. I keep doing the math in my head like it's not lethal, and I don't. 3 + 4 is 7. Yeah, it's literally exact lethal. Holy crap. That was a close game with Trivo and Zeze. Trivo taking it away there. 2-1, and no Caster's Curse this time. No Caster's Curse. I got to throw that out there. Trivo, you won. And you know what it was? Is because we said we did not want Trivo to win. That Trivo won the game. Wow. All right, that'll wrap up round 3. Again, all this action going to come throughout the rest of the week for basically you got 1 match around and then a ton of top 32 cut footage. So excited to bring that to you guys later on in the week. But as always, everybody stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you. And peace out.